In football, there is an age-old theme of false prophets, those who seem to have a bright future in the game and be declared as the next Messi, the next Maradona, or the next Pele, only to fall off, leaving behind a legacy of unfulfilled potential. This could be caused by injuries, yes, but it is usually the result of other factors such as substance abuse, ill discipline, self-sabotage, a poor work ethic, or illegal actions. Rubinho is a great example of this, having been declared as the next Pele.
Despite his talents at youth level, his poor work ethic, inconsistency, lack of tactical knowledge, and disciplinary issues contributed to his downfall.
Then you have players like Wayne Rooney and Neymar, who are some of the greatest players of their respective generations. I would say they are not exactly false prophets considering what they have achieved in the sport, but there is a feeling that had they avoided injuries and not suffered an early drop-off,
I believe that they were talented enough to be solidified as all-time greats,
up there with Messi and Ronaldo. So you have an idea of what I mean.
However, there was an Argentine player that was touted for greatness
and was one of the best players in South America. His talent and accomplishments led many to claim that he was the next Maradona. However, he was extremely temperamental, having multiple bans and disputes throughout his career, and later struggled with alcoholism. Despite his setbacks at Sampdoria, Ortega was signed by Parma for 9.8 million euros. Parma had just won the UEFA Cup, and with Juan Sebastian Veron departing for Lazio, Alberto Malesani saw the Argentine forward as the perfect replacement. His time at Parma brought more frustration. The club had hoped to forge a partnership with Ortega and former River Plate teammate Hernan Crespo. Although they would score 25 goals between the two of them, Ortega only scored 3. Despite winning the 1999 Supercoppa Italiana, Ortega was largely seen as a flop, and Parma decided to cut their losses. Ortega found himself back at River Plate, where he was largely worshipped, teaming up with the likes of Javier Saviola, Pablo Aimar, and Juan Pablo Angel to form River Plate's Los Cuatro Fantásticos. Together, the quartet was unstoppable, absolutely picking teams apart. Ortega and Aimar were given starting places on the wing, and a solid River Plate defense gave them license to roam free and destroy Argentina defenses. Ortega was fantastic, putting up the best numbers of his career, scoring 23 goals in 56 games at his second stint for Los Millonarios, being included in the 2001 South America Team of the Year and winning the 2002 Clausura title. Finally, he resembled the player that had lit up the World Cup 4 years earlier. Manchester United were linked with an offer, but it was Fenerbahce who put down the 6.5 million euros required to lure him from the Monumental once more. However, Ortega struggled in Istanbul, stating in his autobiography, "From the very first moment I realized that this country wasn't for me," describing his experience as torture. Even though he made 15 goal contributions in 20 games, even scoring against rivals Galatasaray in a 6-0 victory, it wasn't enough to fix it. After a friendly against the Netherlands, Ortega flew immediately to Buenos Aires, informing his employers that he wouldn't be back. Fener had promised to add more Argentine players to the squad, but the signings of German coach Werner Lorant hadn't lived up to their potential. After the Turkish club submitted a complaint to FIFA, Ortega was slammed with an $11 million fine and a total ban until December of 2023. A player who had once looked like the successor to Maradona's throne was now without a club at the age of only 29. Unable to buy out his contract and without any suitors, he had no option but to retire in despair. However, Newell's old boys handed him a lifeline, signing the Argentine for 5 million euros. Ortega would instantly repay the club that had brought him back to joy, scoring a penalty before leading La Lipra to a stunning Apertura title in 2004. He scored 11 goals and got 6 assists in 61 games for Newell's old boys. In his eternal battle between talent and temper, football finally appeared to be gaining supremacy. Despite his growing affinity for the people and football in Rosario, Ortega could never turn down a call from River Plate. When they came for him 2 years later, the choice was simple, and he was reunited with the man who granted him his debut over a decade earlier. This time, though, the partnership with Daniel Passarella would turn sour. Ortega started the 2006 Apertura well, but his growing dependence on alcohol finally reached a crisis point in October. Accusations of his unruly behavior filled the pages of the Argentine tabloids. When his struggles with alcohol became public, he was withdrawn from the squad to seek treatment. He emerged from rehab just a month later, scoring a divine chip against San Lorenzo before embracing Passarella on the sidelines. It felt like a rebirth. In January 2007, Passarella had praised Ortega's recovery, admitting that he was on the right track after watching him score one and set up another in a friendly. Barely 24 hours later, he was escorted from the team hotel and brought back to Buenos Aires for further treatment. Things got worse when Passarella was sacked in 2007 and replaced by former teammate Diego Simeone. As the front pages of the news were filled with his binge-drinking escapades, Simeone's patience evaporated. By the time the clausura was sealed in 2008, Ortega was excluded from the squad and placed on the transfer list. "It was the hardest decision I've made," said Simeone at a press conference to announce Ortega's departure. Just days before, Ortega had drunkenly crashed his pickup truck at a service station. Despite his setbacks, Independiente Rivadavia paid a €1.5 million loan fee to bring the troubled playmaker to Mendoza, promising him first-team football in the Nacional B on condition that he attend a rehab program nearby Santiago. It was seen as a massive coup. However, things quickly turned sour as Ortega's repeated absences from training and ill-tempered showings on the pitch resulted in the resignation of his contract. Ortega's addiction continued to blight him back at River, but his performances ticked up slightly. As his condition relapsed and readmitted, the 36-year-old was loaned to local outfit All Boys in 2011. When the news of his signing filtered through, he was followed to his team hotel by dozens of fans who swarmed around, desperate to meet their idol in the flesh. Again, however, he would frustrate, an all-too-common theme across his career. After missing 2 training sessions in a week, Coach Pepe Romero dropped Ortega from the squad for a match against Tigre. Predictably, the arrangement would prove to be short-lived as a 36-year-old Ortega returned to River Plate once more under new coach Juan Jose Lopez. After the Argentine missed the first day of preseason training with stomach problems, he was informed by Lopez that he was being removed from the squad. He retired in 2012 after a season with Defensores de Belgrano in the Metropolitano B. However, River Plate could not leave Ortega's career end on such a whimper. On July 13, 2013, a farewell match was organized in Ortega's honor. After 24 minutes, he received a standing ovation from 60,000 adoring millenarios. The cries of "Orte! Orte!" caused him to burst into tears. "I want to thank you all," he boomed over the stadium speakers. "Thank you very much, and thank God for making me a fan of River Plate." There are 2 ways of analyzing the career of El Burrito. On one hand, he was immensely frustrating, coming nowhere near close to maximizing his immense talent. He was meant to be the heir to Maradona, but was frustrating at the highest level and failed to lead his country to greatness, instead leading to a career-long struggle with alcoholism and frequent outbursts. Ortega was nothing more than a troubled genius, a lost soul, a false prophet. However, he was a ray of light for La Banda fans who witnessed his talents. He had won everything in South America, being a 3-time South America Team of the Year inclusion and being able to single-handedly win matches on his own as a talisman for Los Millonarios. But most of all, he was a player who had captured the hearts and minds of their fans. one who fought hard with everything he had in each of his 272 appearances for Los Millonarios. And perhaps, just like Maradona, he was an idol, an inspiration, and it seemed like his fight with demons and ill temper had made him even more adored and relatable. And that alone is worth more than any silverware or awards a player can win.